Okay, so I guess this is episode 2 of Ravings of a Lunatic. It's me and him, and we're back for a second dose of total absurdity.
That'd be the idea, man.
The topic we're thinking of today, well, he hasn't thought of it yet because he has a hard time thinking, is...
Said his mother.
Well, yeah. Is...
Stop turning your head.
The state of the gaming world, not video games, that's so cliche, yada, yada, yada. I'm talking about is where gaming, like tabletop gaming in general, has gone in the last, 10, 20 years. It's Magic's 20th anniversary this year. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did.
Gen Con 93 is when they premiered.
That's great.
I know.
Magic sucks.
I think, Matt, it's shown the longevity of a game. Yes, there's other games that have had just as long. D&D's been around forever, but it's never had the pinnacle of Magic. But that being said, I think that plays directly into the state of gaming, as I'll say Wizards of the Coast is probably one of the crappiest game companies ever to exist.
I will back that.
Now, a lot of people may go, oh, what do you mean? They brought us Magic. They blah, 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 blah. Don't get me wrong. Wizards of the Coast, as a business, is actually, I think, a damn good business. But as a game company, they suck. And I'll back that up with this statement. They have not made one game that's lasted worth a crap.
But Dan, didn't they make Magic?
No. Richard Garfield originally approached them with the idea, the game called Mana Flare, Mana Burn, if I remember correctly. But instead they opted to pick up Robo Rally, which went on to become a moderate hit. And then they picked up the Magic idea. So somebody else made it, and then they took it and ran with it. And the rest is history. Again, good business. They licensed it, they eventually bought it from him, and now the rest is history.
You mean to tell me that they didn't make Dungeons and Dragons?
No, they bought TSR, and then ran D&D into the ground.
Yes, they did. Destroyed the fuck out of it.
Let's pick. I'll just pick some. I'll name some names here, and you tell me if you've ever heard of these games. I'll play the Duel Masters.
Yes.
It was actually, but it died.
Yes. Now it's back.
In a different form, but anyway, we'll get on to that. Hecatome.
No, but isn't there a game like that on Xbox?
G.I. Joe trading card game.
Nope.
Lasted 2 sets. And we could go on with all this. Wizards as a business has a great model of buying up lesser known companies and companies in financial straits, or just companies going right by, and then milking the crap out of them. Axis and Allies, Risk, Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, all right. And at one point, this is a long time ago, a lot of you may not know this, but Wizards of the Coast had manufacturing distribution rights of Pokemon in the U.S.
Be careful, Dan. Your age is showing.
Right. And then in the late 90s, they flooded the market, milked it, and that created the great card collapse back when there were like literally hundreds of CCGs, and they tanked. In that summer, before Hasbro bought them, they caught Dune, C-23, Hercules, Vampire the Masquerade, Legend of the Five Rings, Pokemon. They dumped a whole ton. Now, Nintendo has nursed Pokemon back to health and is currently in the top 5 selling card games in the hobby industry. But it's actually, I think, the best-selling overall card game when you take in retail giants, big box stores like Walmart and Target, all them.
Well, yeah, that's because when Mom takes the kid to the grocery store, Mom, I like Pokemon. Can I buy this?
Correct. But on the same token, L5R is still around, though more of a niche market, but I believe AEG picked them back up, and the game lasted. White Wolf took Vampire the Eternal Struggle back, and that game lasted, I believe, until 2007 2008. But the point is these games that Wizards absorbed became distribution, marketing, manufacturing, responsible for those aspects of the game as well as organized play. Just dumped them. And the people they licensed them from had to milk them back to health, the ones that did survive. So, again, good business, maybe not. Had they not milked Pokemon like a mother, it probably could have been a staple moneymaker for them, because it's still around. The show's still on the air. The new episodes are on. So, I mean...
Not to mention the billion-dollar video game industry that Nintendo has...
No, they never had the video game money.
No,
but,
I'm just saying what Pokemon is still going on.
Right. So... And then
it's been going on so long, they're running out of ideas for Pokemon.
And
did you know that in the new Pokemon, like Pokemon White, there is a monster that is a candle. There is a monster that is a chair.
They had a lamp, too.
A lamp.
Yes.
They are running out of ideas for Pokemon, guys.
Whatever, but as long as it's making the money. But the prime, well, how should I say, bastardization of the games that... Well, number one, come on. They had the license for every Star Wars. They had miniatures, card game, role-playing game. How do you get a license to print money?
And then fuck it up.
Like 2-3 years ago, all 3 lines they cut out. Now, West End Games had the license prior to that for the RPG. And they ran that sucker for, I think, 10, 15 years.
11.
11 years? I liked it. It was a D6 system. It was different, whatever. Decipher had the Star Wars CCG game. And that game was popular as hell. But obviously with Hasbro having the toy licensing, once they bought Wizards of the Coast, well, they picked up all the licenses. Probably a package deal. So
wait, Hasbro bought Wizards of the Coast?
Where the hell have you been in the last 10 years?
Doing normal stuff.
Okay. But, again...
Like nerding out.
But because Hasbro bought Wizards of the Coast, and then, part of the business deal got all the gaming licenses. There were West End Games went under. Decipher was hurting, well, along with the embezzlement. But that's a whole other story. But gamers got hurt because a quality product were set aside for financial reasons. That was bullcrap. And at the end of the day, much to Decipher's dismay, they released a card. I think it took them 3 or 4 years to release the Wars card game, which used the same mechanics, but that was just bad on their part. I mean, they already had the mechanics. It took them 3.5 years to come out with a theme for the existing mechanics from Star Wars. But again, that's a whole other story in Decipher. But I think the biggest tragedy was Dungeons and Dragons. Now,
I have to agree with that. I'm not, I don't have like 30 years of backing experience from Dungeons and Dragons, but I've had my fair share of games. I've done 2nd edition with you when you DM'd with us. Right. I did a 2nd edition campaign with Clay and them, and then I did I've done 3rd edition. I didn't like 3rd edition. I've done 3.5. I've done Pathfinder.
Well, let's keep this objective. And by this I mean...
Well, no, let me finish. And then I got to 4th edition, and let me tell you, 4th edition is pretty much when Wizards
you're missing scope. I'm saying, let's take the actual way that the versions play, and not even take that into consideration. I don't care if 1st edition is better than 2nd, if 5th is better than 3rd. Who cares? That's not the point. I'm talking about the effects of the gaming business here. And how the business mentality of Wizards of the Coast is hurting gaming as a community. Because in my mind, when you look back, a lot of the older gaming companies, when you had TSR, when Decipher was in its heyday, West End Game, a lot of those old ones, it was more of a community. People made games for the love of the games. And now the only real existing game, there's only... Because, I think Wizards bought Avalon Hill, too. Mayfair Games is still out. But Palladium Books, they're still around. It's been 30 years. And, they're still chugging along. But they make games because I love making them. And my point is this. Gygax and Anderson make D&D back in the 70s, 1st edition. Well, just Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. They actually made Basic. And then out comes 2nd edition, which is actually fully compatible with 1st edition. There were some rules. Well, somewhat you could easily convert stuff from 1st edition to 2nd edition. 2nd edition basically like, we're doing so much revision, we're just going to call it 2nd edition. But you could easily pick up a 1st edition adventure module and play 2nd edition. There was no problem there. Then Wizards picks them up. Towards the end, TSR came up with those players' options. We're going from 6 stats to 12 stats, all that stuff. They're trying to expand the game. And then it was, I believe, 99 or 2000. Wizards, they bought TSR. They're like, hey, 3rd edition. And everybody was excited. We didn't know what to expect. We didn't know what was going on. We're like, hey, what the hell? And they come out 3rd edition. And within 6 months, they had to come out 3.5 because 3rd edition was flawed. Okay, they're new to role-playing games. They just picked up this legendary product from the gaming industry. And it's like, okay, it's a flub. We're cool with that. Everybody makes mistakes. And then they did something even better. The open gaming license. Companies sprouted up overnight to work with this. I mean, there's so much crap. And for those of you that don't know, the D20 system that Wizards put out for D&D, they expanded it to they had modern, they had they used that system for a ton of genres, worlds, setting, you name it. But the D20 system actually had the open gaming license. And it, anyone could make anything as long as they followed that gaming license, open gaming license criteria, and didn't have to pay licensing fees and all this and that. Now, in my general opinion, I believe that Wizards saw this and be like, oh crap, man, look how much stuff's coming out, and we're not getting our piece of the pie. So then, bam, 4th edition. In I believe, about 7 or 8 years after 3.5 came out?
Yep.
And, regardless of how it plays or not, each system has its merits, play style.
But 4th edition is WoW on paper.
Yeah, but WoW's fun. If you're on the computer and you don't want to have to do pen and paper and roll dice all the time. Some people liked it, some people didn't. But a lot of people were upset because, well, hey, I just invested all this money in all these books, all this material, and all these other... And a lot of these companies are pissed off, too. Like, oh. And bam. And that came out, 5-6 years ago? If that. And now they're playtesting 5th edition.
Which is scheduled to come out next fall.
Now,
or this fall.
Right. And it's a totally different version than 4th edition. Which brings me to the point that they keep reinventing the wheel.
It's going back to its fundamentals. It's going back to 3rd or 3.5 and 2nd edition is where it's
But, it's too late. And this is what I mean. 3.5 was so popular that Pazio came out with Pathfinder, which is basically, they took the open gaming license and released 3.5 as Pathfinder. And now there's 2 variations. Recently, Pathfinder has become the best-selling RPG. It is now outselling Dungeons & Dragons. I don't think a 5th edition release will curb that trend. But there's another point, and this is where Wizards of the Coast as a business is bad for gaming. If I want to play 3rd edition, let's say they didn't make 4th edition, or whatever, or let's say you play 4th edition, doesn't matter. You got to get a Dungeon Master's Guide, a Player's Handbook, and a Monster Manual. And you're looking at $35 each, about 200 to 300 pages a book. You're at $105. Okay, well, within 2 weeks, Dungeon Master Guide 2 comes out, Player's Handbook 2, and they got to throw 3 or 4 for 4? Now you go over to Pathfinder. You're paying $40 for the core book, but it's the Dungeon Masters and the Player's Handbook together. So you're paying, it's about $50, isn't it? $50 for the it's hardback.
It's $47.99.
You're right. And then you get their monster manual, essentially. It's their, I forget what they call it, but it's their monster book. And the total cost for those 2 books is about $80, $90. And you get everything you need to play. Everything. They're not going to come out with another Player's Handbook. Now they have guides for different classes and stuff. But my point is this. For less investment, you get all the core products you need to play. Where Wizards of the Coast, you're spending more, and even at 250 pages a book, you're only getting 750 pages. I believe both Pathfinder books are damn near 900 or 1,000 pages. So you're getting a lot more information, a lot more products for your dollar, and you don't have to worry about 3 more players' handbooks coming out or 5 more monster manuals coming out. And because the only thing that Pazio does for sure is they put out a new module every month, a new adventure. And a lot of people like creating their own campaigns, their own adventures. So it doesn't really apply to those people that don't want to. Where if you go to the Wizards of Coast website and look under Dungeons and Dragons, they're putting out 6 products a month. I mean, maybe not that many, but it's ridiculous. And it is. And at the end of the day, they're just... And then even if you like Dungeons & Dragons and you put the time and the investment in, then they're going to change it on you. Oh, look, sorry you've been playing our game for 4 years, 5 years. Here's a new edition. Everything we just made is obsolete. Which, again, in itself wouldn't be awful if they continue to support the older things. Even if it was, every couple months they just put out a new product. I'm sure people would still play that. So, I mean, two things. I think 4th edition, from what I've heard, not as many people like it as much as 3.5, but people found it okay. But I think where they got disheartened is realizing, oh, now 5th edition's coming out. All the money I just spent on 4th, I wasted. And that's the beauty with Pazio's plan, is everything they make for Pathfinder, all the old 3.5 stuff is still compatible. So you can pick up all that old 3.5 stuff you have from Wizards that was in your shelf, your closet that you weren't playing, and bam, you're back in like Flynn. Comments on that? Or...
I don't know, dude. I mean, you've pretty much hit every nail.
And again, I realize gaming as a community is fine, but it's still business. You got to make money. You got to make money to keep putting out products. But to do it at the expense of your consumers, that's just ridiculous. And again, this isn't saying anything flat out. I mean, they've done some amazing things with their existing property. I mean, Magic, 20 years. Obviously, they didn't create it, but they've expanded it a lot. But that brings me to my next point. Where do we see gaming going from here? I mean, obviously, WizKids, when they introduced collectible miniatures. I mean, I'm not going to bring up Pogs, but it was a thing. The resurgence of German-type board games. I mean, Settlers of Catan was a hit. A lot more innovation in gaming. I'm trying to think of...
The world's turning more to video games than it is anything else, though.
No, but tabletops actually had a resurgence. I mean, look at the number of Kickstarters. I mean, like, I believe it's Minion Games. They only do a couple of projects a year in-house, like fully supported themselves. But they do a few other games that they kickstart and get, crowdsource funding to help pay for those games' productions. So, I mean, with the public on board and this gaming, this is, I think, more the gaming community get more involved. They can pick what games they want to support, and then with sites like Drive-Thru Games, well, there's Drive-Thru Cards, Drive-Thru RPG, the Game Crafter. There's a lot of print-on-demands, but not like the old cheap-ass games where you oh look, here's $5, cut out all this stuff and go. Like quality games you can buy. It might be a little pricier, but that's the downfall or the drawback of having games that you just print on demand.
But I mean, if you look at it, there has been a resurgence to it. But the way I see it is, like, when you look at family game night now, it's actually more of like families crowding around a TV, playing like a Wii, an Xbox. It's not.
But
not so much of
gaming's always been a niche thing. Hasbro's like family game night. Let's sit around and play Battleship and then make a movie on it and puke when we see it. But I'm talking more in-depth games. I mean, they've got a Settlers of Catan for kids, and just a lot of innovative things. Co-op games. If you look at the classic games. You're talking Chutes and Ladders, Connect 4, sorry.
I've never played Chutes and Ladders.
Well, whatever. There's really no co-op games where everybody's working together. Now you get games like Pandemic, Castle Panic. I'm thinking of a couple.
Survive the Night.
Yeah, but the names are just like eluding me. So, but those are big now. Or different takes on existing genres, like the old collectible card game. What are those? If you look at the top 10 selling card games in the hobby industry last year, I mean, you got your staples: Pokemon, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, World of Warcraft's still up there, but I swear to God, that's a whole other story with Cryptozoic and how they screwed that pooch. I think that's just being kept afloat by loot cards. And then you've got Fantasy Flight Games with their deck building, their living card games as they call it, but it's non-collectible. You buy the box and you've got all the cards in it. Now, I want to say that was originally pioneered by Kenzer and Company with their Monty Python and the Holy Grail card game. They touted it in their advertisements. A non-collectible card game. That's
just a flesh wound.
Yeah, it's just a flesh wound.
You're missing all of your limbs. Tis a flesh wound.
I recommend if you can find that at your local game shop or on eBay pretty cheap, pick it up. It's just a hoot. But don't pay too much for it. But and or miniatures. Like one of the main things I hated what Wizards did when they had their D&D miniature game, and then they stopped it, and now the miniatures are just support for the role playing game, which is fine. I understand that, because when it was a miniatures game, there were boosters and stuff, and now they sell them. You can see what you're buying. But why not at least still have the rules online? I mean, that the miniatures I liked it. I mean, and then they just stopped. But they're still making miniatures. I mean, it'd be one thing if they just stopped making the things. But now they make them, but now there's no rules. I guess my point here is maybe the next phase is to take existing genres and niches of games and make them non-collectible. Because, as Fantasy Flight, they had 2 of the top 10 selling hobby industry card games last year, and they're non-collectible. Because I think, especially in the economic recession and crap, you want your dollar to go more. And if I can buy a game and get everything I need for it, I mean, collectible card games were fun, but nowadays people want to buy a game and play it. They don't want to have to keep buying and buying and buying and buying. It's like, I want to buy it, I want to play it. If you put an expansion out, I want to buy the expansion, have everything I need, and play it. I don't want to, I've got 4 of every common and uncommon in Magic, but now I got to buy another box because I'm missing half the rares. That. Now, as a business model, yeah, that's great. But as an individual who wants to game, I don't like that. That's why I honestly think that the living card game is making its way up there.
It is. But I mean, Fantasy Flight Games they've got more than just like the living card games. They've got like the Call of Cthulhu games. They've got all that stuff.
Well, they have an LCG for Call of Cthulhu.
I know they do. It's just interesting to see what they've done with they've taken an idea and just completely rolled it over and done it into something where that not only can they make money, but they can make it affordable for us to play.
Right. Because 2 things. I mean, you take a collectible card game. You're on a schedule. You got to do blah 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 blah. You have to crank out 300 cards, and we all know this that have played collectible card games. There's a lot of crap, a lot of filler. There's cards you wouldn't play in a million years, even in the kitchen. I think by having scaled down sets of non-collectible, you can, one, have less, which lowers production value, which thereby makes it more affordable, and 2, because you have less cards, the stuff you're making is quality. You're not going to have those crap fillers. You're not going to have that 8/8 for 12 frickin' cost that does nothing but dies to a 1 cost spell. And
quality over quantity, my friend.
Basically, yeah. Well, and affordability. Because let's say I am that collectible card game player and I'm missing 2 cards from my deck. I shouldn't have to go spend $30 per card because it's rare and it's in the case and everybody wants it. As opposed to, a Final Fantasy, a living card game, I go pay $40. Hey, I got everything I need. I'm done.
Yeah, what was it? Jace the Mind Raper, he was up there like $110 or something like that?
It was something ridiculous. About as bad as Tarmogoyf back during Times Square Block.
Exactly.
But Because, I mean, especially Yu-Gi-Oh! Like Yu-Gi-Oh! The major plague of that game is, I got the money, I'm going to win. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is probably the worst game, where nobody ever plays the commons. And with 7 frickin' rarity types, and the rare slot, you got secret rare, ultimate rare, ghost rare, blah, blah, blah. It basically comes down to who's got the most money. And considering that's a game targeted at kids, you know, whose daddy and mommy want to spend more money on
Exactly. You could go to any tournament in the world. I mean, yes, it does come down to how you play the deck. But the matter of speaking is,
but if you can't afford
I'm playing a $3, if I'm playing like a $40 deck, and Dan over here is playing an $800 deck, whether or not he knows how to play the deck or not, the odds of him getting a better draw than me, it's like 10-1. There's just no chance.
Oh, and there's like it was probably about 3-4 years ago. I mean, I played Yu-Gi-Oh back in like 2004, 2005. And then I didn't pick it up again. I just learned it because I had a card store. So I gotta learn how to play this game. And then about 3-4 years ago, we were having a tournament. I think there was about 48 people in that one. We left at 6 in the morning, and I wasn't even planning. I was going to play in the Magic tournament. But one of the guys we were with, he's like a big Yu-Gi-Oh freak, man. He had like everything. And he had this it was a consistent first, second turn kill deck. He took a half hour, taught me how to play it. Now, I think price range on that deck was about $500-$600. I knew the basics of Yu-Gi-Oh, and I took that deck, learned how to play it. I went 7-0 in the Swiss and finished 3rd in the tournament. I lost in the semifinals. Hadn't played the game in 5-6 years. Had a 30-minute course on how to play this deck, and I think I went like 8-1 in that tournament. It was ridiculous. But that's what I mean by, you know, buying the game or buying your wins. You just, I got the money, I'm going to win this sucker. So I guess my point is maybe the future of gaming isn't inventing new things like WizKids did. I mean, it's still a shame what happened to them because
it's reinventing.
Right. Taking a card game and redoing it. Taking miniatures and redoing them in some way. I don't know. That's the future. Like, Your Move Games, I believe it's Delaware or is it Rhode Island? They came up with an idea. It's like a miniature battle game. But what this game does is take a game like Warhammer. And what it does is they're cards instead of miniatures. But it's like you're looking down on them. So you see like the tops of the heads of the archers and stuff. And you play the game with that. Because what they wanted that miniature game feel, but without all the prep or having to take, 60 boxes of stuff with you. So, and they made it non-collectible. Like when you buy like your elf army, you get the whole army. And they have little expansion packs, like 10, 15, 20 cards. And you can buy those and augment. But the point is when you buy it, just like Warhammer, you know what you're getting. And then you can make your army and roll with it. But, that's taking miniatures and innovating them to a quick play, kind of like what WizKids did by having the pre-painted, ready-to-go miniatures. And then they came out with games like Pirates, little, with some buy boats in them.
That was a fun game.
Yeah, and that was a good game. And then, obviously, when Topps bought them and then cut them without word. And they're making a comeback now, but, I mean, it was such a hit because gamers were so used to getting screwed by the man. They'd invest all this time and money in a game, and then, out of nowhere, poof, gone. Nobody wants to put that kind of time and effort into gaming, just have it all go south.
Unfortunately, coming from a person who's actually played Warhammer and played HeroClix and played all these games, Warhammer was so time invested. The worst part about Warhammer was you'd buy your piece, and if you painted it wrong, now you've got to take the time to completely repaint it just so that it matches your army. I mean, yeah, they sold pre-painted models, but if the paint didn't match your army, you were screwed.
Right. And I think about this point, this is what we'll call this. We'll probably continue this in our next episode about the actual, where we think the evolution of gaming will go. And maybe throw around some ideas and see what we come up with. And until next time,
I'm Tommy.
I'm some old guy with no hair.
Exactly. And this has been the Ravings of a Lunatic. You guys have a good day.